What does it mean to be a spiritual warrior? Or what does it mean, spiritual warfare? Hello, this is Chris speaking with a video about spiritual warfare and spiritual warriors. Since Carlos Castaneda and Dan Millman and Tom Brown and many other authors, the term spiritual warrior has become quite popular. And Jed McKenna calls it spiritual warfare. What is this warrior stuff? How can a spiritual person be a warrior? What does warfare have to do with spirituality and the search for peace and knowledge? First of all, it's an internal war. There's a constant fight against things like fear or pride or the longing for power. And this fight never ends. These things always come back and you always have to conquer them anew. The other thing is, it's also an external war. You're always like on the warpath. Imagine you're a First Nation Indian a few hundred years ago on the warpath. So you have to be very, very careful not to be discovered, and every mistake can cost you life. Because every mistake can cost you life, and your life is very, very short, it can end tomorrow or in 1 hour. You can be run over by a car any moment. So there's constant awareness. Instead of lounging on your sofa at home watching movies and drinking whiskey, you could use your time. Yes, once you have discovered that your personality does not exist, it's just a narration, just a story. And yes, once you have discovered what non-duality really means, there will be a transition period where you don't know what to do. Actually, beforehand already, there will probably be a transition period once this thing is dawning upon you but has not hit you 100%. There's some kind of frustration and desperation what to do now, because you were used to do things out of fear and compulsion. This fear and compulsion is going away and is gone at some point, and then you don't have a reason anymore to do anything. But that's not completely true. You have to find a new reason to do anything. And this new reason is not to waste your life, not to waste your time, and to acquire real knowledge and get to know all these other realities that are waiting for you. And also, you will never be free. You can be as enlightened as you want. You will never be free of all the encumbrances and hurdles of this previous life, of this gross physical sphere. You will always have to eat and drink. You will always need money. You will always encounter people who want to harm you, or hurt you, or manipulate you. That will never stop. So this is also where you need to be a warrior and not a weakling. Being spiritual is not a solution in itself for everything. It's not that all your problems will be gone. It's just you will deal with problems differently. Instead of seeing them as problems and then putting your head in the sand like an ostrich, you will take it as a challenge, as a warrior, as entertainment on the stage. Like Shakespeare said, the whole world is a stage. Yes, it's a stage, and still you can be killed on stage. It's like in the Matrix. The Matrix is not real, but if you die in the Matrix, your real body will also die. And for this reason, it is very common that spiritual people are also martial artists, because it teaches you something about being a warrior. It's in itself, martial arts are not highly spiritual, but they can be useful. What you don't want is to become a philosopher in an ivory tower. We've had this already. Wise people who could not defend themselves at all if it came to it. A very good example for me is Sri Aurobindo, again, because he was a freedom fighter and he was not afraid of being arrested for it. He was something like a terrorist. We would call it nowadays, only that he was fighting for the freedom of his own country against oppressors. So, terrorism is probably not the right word. But he was very extreme in his measures to achieve his goal. So he was a spiritual warrior. Even before he focused on the spiritual part. And he knew how to use his time. And he knew that the gross sphere was not the only reality, that there were other spheres like the subtle and the mental and the supramental. And that's what he focused on later on, once he had access to those spheres or worlds. But he never totally ignored the gross sphere. He was always somehow involved in politics, even if it was only by writing a letter. So a spiritual warrior doesn't mean that you actually have to go somewhere to a war or something and kill someone. It means that you have to fight those aspects in yourself that constantly want to drag you back down, and also that you don't shy away from confrontations in your normal life. Your normal life will always remain your normal life, and you have to find a way to survive there. It's a survival thing. Especially if you're different than most people. Yeah? If you're 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 or 1 in a million, then it's even more difficult to survive because you're operating on different principles and premises than most people around you. So to be a spiritual warrior means not to be a weakling, not to be afraid, not to just develop a huge mind and forget about your body. A spiritual warrior means to do your best every single moment with full intent and full awareness, although you know most of what you're seeing is an illusion. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all my Patreons. Thank you for joining me as a Patreon. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and see you soon.